why can't we live in the world that we want to?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we create the world that we want to see? And the biggest factor is fear and money, I think, is a big are two big
Mm-hmm.
excuses that we tell ourselves. And they're lies. They're not, they're fallacies. Because and the only reason I say that, I'm not, I didn't start with anything. I didn't have two pennies to rub together. Like I worked a full-time job and we paid our bills. Like I didn't have magic investors like.
Have you ever pitched an idea, vision, or a business plan you believed in, only to be told it would never work? Our next guest, Chris Bovey, experienced exactly that. Instead of backing down, he used the rejection as fuel, refining his concept and adjusting his path to not only succeed, but to spark a citywide movement. He's the artist and entrepreneur behind Vintage Print, whose throwback-style prints have become synonymous with Spokane's identity. From building a business one print at a time to saving the iconic Garland Theater from closing, Chris's story is all about betting on your gut, staying true to your vision, and creating something that lasts. This is a conversation about grit, heart, and the power of saying yes to yourself, only on Navigating No. Chris, it is a pleasure to have you here today. So thanks for coming in, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You are originally from Australia,
Yeah.
way down under, but you're in Spokane now, and
Yeah.
you have an amazing business. And I would love for everybody to hear about that business and your background. But we connected through my producer, and he was like, "You need to meet Chris because you guys both love vintage and art." And I was like, "Oh, I'd love that." So seriously, it's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Can you tell the audience kind of like what direction you're going? Like what brought you up here from Australia?
Well, mom was originally from Spokane. She became a teacher, graduated from Eastern, and then Australia had a shortage of teachers when she graduated. And so they sent her over to Australia for free. Free room and board, everything like that, as long as she would just agree to teach at a school over there,
Yeah.
a rural school. And so she taught there for a while, and then she met my dad, and then had my brother and I, and then aging parents over here in the States. So when I was 9, I still remember it like it was yesterday. We're in the car, I was in the back seat, and they said, "Do you guys want to go live in America for a year?" For a year.
Yeah.
Started out as a year, and we're like, okay, yeah, let's do this. A new adventure, you know what I'm saying? So we came over here, and we just never went back.
It was longer than a year.
Yes.
Okay. Is that because you loved it, or because your mom was taking care of her parents, or your dad loved it, or?
Yeah, it was mostly mom taking care of parents and things like that. But I mean, we liked it.
Yeah.
You know, my brother and I, is like, you go from this very tropical environment, and then you go and experience this place
With snow.
Yeah. Yeah. The very first time I saw snow, it's like I just ran out there and I instantly was frozen, but it was beautiful to be able to see this area and see the Four Seasons. And I personally, I just fell in love with it. Like I went to high school here, and you get made fun of a lot as a kid, especially with an Australian accent, you know what I'm saying, coming over. So I worked really hard in elementary school and junior high to like get rid of that and kind of fit in with kids and stuff like that, But
were you picked on, or?
Oh yeah.
You were?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
All the time. Yeah.
You weren't the cool guy. Like sometimes the outsider's kind of like, "Oh, what's he bringing?"
No, it's not like the movies, man. It's like any difference, kids pounce on, you know what I'm saying? So I worked hard at losing the Australian accent, and but going to I went to LC.
You were a Tiger. I did not know that. Okay.
Well, I went to LC freshman and sophomore year. Then I got kicked out of there, and then I went to NC after that.
Okay.
And that's where I graduated. But like I found my family there. You know, I found home there
Sure.
at NC, and it was awesome. It was fantastic, and I was a drama nerd, and like I fit in with those kids, and Mr. Armitage was amazing, and just kind of took me under his wing, and made me feel at home there. So
Was there a reason that you changed schools? Like you got kicked out in the sense like was it just hard to fit in at that time, or was it
yeah,
just
it was hard to fit in. I had no friends there, and so I started getting up to no good.
Mhm.
And then so I literally got kicked out, and then after that I could choose to go to any school I wanted, and I just knew about some folks through the drama group and everything who went to NC and said they loved it, so I thought I'd check it out. So
and then you obviously connected with the drama teacher
yeah,
that kind of took you under the wing. So was that what was that experience like? Like all of a sudden you connected with someone who basically changed the direction of your life,
that's
right?
true. Yeah,
Okay.
that is true. And like I said, it was a family. It felt like a family. The whole group, the whole all the kids I graduated with and everything like that. But and I really kind of came out of my shell and like was the lead in a few plays and things like that. And it was kind of uh, drama was not like looked down upon
Yeah.
at this school. It was like inclusive, and jocks did it. Everyone did it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And participated in it. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Would you say, can you pinpoint what it was that made you feel welcomed there? Was it just a teacher? Was it everybody? Like there must have been a reason that you felt included there versus at Lewis and Clark.
Um, yeah, it was all of the above. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it was the teacher, it was the friend group, it was everything. For some reason, um, the entire school just felt welcoming. Like there wasn't bullying going on, things like that. I didn't experience any of
Mhm.
that. There wasn't alienation like I had at LC. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just a warm, friendly, welcoming environment, and I definitely look back on those days fondly.
Yes. Oh, I completely agree. It's whether it was with school with me or finding, because growing up I did get picked on with my name, right? And it was brutal. And the person that took me under his wing was my martial arts instructor off of Monroe Street, where your new store is
Yeah,
actually. And it was he made me feel like I was welcome, and he showed me the value that I could, and I fell in love with something, and I was surrounded by other people that were like, Blue, you're going to do awesome here. If
yeah,
you want to succeed, let's do this. And I just found a passion for something. I mean, I always wanted to be a ninja,
yeah,
but it was really cool to find a home or a tribe where everybody else kind of felt the same way, and we all
yeah,
looked up to each other and we helped each other out. And
yeah.
I think you're lucky to have been able to transfer from LC to a school that picked you up like that
Yeah.
and made you see a different perspective of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a couple years ago, actually, they NC actually gave me the Distinguished Alumni Award,
Oh,
um, nominated by my drama teacher. So, like, just for who I am and what I've been doing with my life since then. So, which was really humbling and
oh,
amazing. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
See, Ferris has not called me and told me. But I did find out that our 30 year is like at a bar or something like that. I was like, I don't want to go to that. So shout out to Ferris. If you guys are having your 30 year this year, which I know they are, let's maybe change the environment. But okay, so you got this alumni because of the things that you've been doing. So
Yeah.
you get out of high school, you found love and drama and like the arts. So what happened from there?
Um, I went to, so probably around 15 or so, I started teaching myself graphic design,
Mm-hmm.
Photoshop skills, things like that. And so I'm kind of taking this drama path, but I'm also finding this love for graphic design just as a side thing, just for fun. You know what I'm saying? And so I went to the Falls for a couple years.
Spokane Falls
Yeah.
Community College. Right?
Yeah. And I did the drama program there. I started going down the arts path, but
Did you want to be an actor at all, or just drama, like Broadway stage
I did
stuff?
commercials, I did
Uh-huh.
movies, things like that. I went through that phase, and I realized, man, it's not as, um, I don't know, it's not
As shiny as you
it's
think
not
it
as
is?
shiny,
No,
and it doesn't glitter
no.
like you think it's going
Where
to,
did you Where did you work? Did
Well,
you?
I did. Okay, so I did this really crappy movie shot at Rogers called Hangman's Curse. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
I
So
thought you were going to say Vision Quest. I was like, I think you're too
no,
young for that. But
no.
okay.
I did Hangman's Curse, and I had a speaking part in that, and everyone on the set were just assholes.
Uh-huh.
I don't mean to talk bad, but everyone within that industry, you didn't get the welcoming vibe like you did at NC or a
Yeah.
drama club or anything like that. Everyone was just kind of doing their own thing. And then I had a lead role in this other crappy movie called Y2K that came out right before, obviously,
Yeah.
Millennium. But I don't know. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't for me. So I was also going to graphic design at the Falls, and nothing against their program or anything like that, but the things that they were teaching me were things that I knew already. Basic, color and design, things like that, like that type of thing. And so I took a detour to Seattle and worked for Microsoft in Bellevue for a couple years, and I was just miserable, just absolutely miserable. Just doing tech
living in
support.
Bellevue
Yes.
and trying, or maybe you weren't even living in
No,
Bellevue. And
I
you're
couldn't afford
right.
that.
No, and it is super expensive. And I'm
So
assuming your commute back then was
An
brutal.
hour each way, man. It was brutal. At least,
And
Yeah.
it's so funny when people are like, well, what do you love about Spokane? And I'm like, well, I know for a fact that if I want to go see a movie up north or in
Yes.
the valley or anything, it
Yeah.
is 15 minutes,
Yep.
22 minutes.
That's
But in
it.
Seattle, it could be an hour, 14 minutes. You
Yeah.
have no clue.
It's an all-day adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so, yeah, I actually lived in Mill Creek and had to commute all the time, and it was draining. And I was living over there by myself and everything like that. All my friends were over here. And so eventually I got sick of that after 3 years or something, and I came back.
Was that hard to leave a job that you kind of had gotten into? And I mean, you could have made a career out of Microsoft. A lot of people want to be at Microsoft.
It was really good pay.
Uh-huh.
It was fantastic. Right out of school too, And so I'm over there 21, 22, making a lot of money, but I was just miserable, just depressed, And so,
that drive by yourself every day.
yeah.
Did you ever cheat in the HOV lane?
Never
And you're like,
did.
you never
Never
did?
did.
Well, I
Never
did,
did.
but let's not say that. All right. And it was like the knuckles were always red and
Yeah.
white. I was like, oh, am I going to get caught? Because
Yeah.
you have to make it there sometimes.
Absolutely.
So yes,
Yeah.
the stress and anxiety of not being
Yes.
there anymore is relieving for
It
sure.
definitely is.
Uh-huh.
And so I decided to come back and kind of tail between your legs type of thing, and so because your parents are like, oh, wow, you got this great job, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, and come back and I live with them. And then I get this job.
Well,
First.
hold on,
Okay.
because I told everyone I wasn't coming back to Spokane.
Yeah.
After high school, I was like, I'm not coming back, and I did not want to come back because I felt like I would fail. Right? I am moving on, and I'm gonna get.
And
I'm
that's
gonna
a
go to
sign
college.
of failure coming back?
Yeah, well, yeah. I didn't want to come back to Spokane. I was like, no, it means I'm moving up and I'm
Yes.
going out. And so I
Yes.
went from Spokane to Seattle to Tokyo.
Yes.
And then I landed back in Seattle. And I was like, I was afraid to come back. And you came back very soon. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
but at that same feeling of the tail between the legs,
Yes.
but it was a mindset. And I had to realize no, you're bringing back more experience with you, right? Coming back
Yeah.
from Seattle.
I didn't see it like that at the
Okay.
time.
Either did I.
obviously,
Uh-huh.
But coming back, it was starting over. It was
Yes.
completely starting over,
Yeah.
starting from scratch, because I wasn't going in tech support or wasn't doing anything in that field, and I just wanted to.
But you knew you weren't happy.
I wasn't happy.
You
at
were
all.
not happy. And so
No.
you were at this point where you were like, okay, is my happiness more valuable to me, or is making money
Yes.
and going through the
Yes.
commute? And what was that final straw? It wasn't driving in the HOV lane. So what was it?
No, it was just a culmination of like I the I wasn't happy there. I had no friends there. I didn't like the job.
Mhm.
You know, it's like it was just a whole bunch of things going on top of each other. And I obviously look back at my time here in Spokane and fondly, you know,
Yes.
and I had a lot of friends here and stuff like that. And so I took the hit, so to speak, and just came back willing to start over, willing to do anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
As long as I was back, you know?
But that's scary.
Yeah, it was terrifying. Yeah.
And I would say the one thing that I didn't realize is when I came back, the network that I had,
Yeah.
the friendships that I had.
Yeah.
I mean, all of my childhood best friends are still here.
Yeah.
And they're at a fingertip. I could connect with them.
Yeah.
And I could get their help or support. And it was like, you always have that fallback. And I didn't realize that.
No.
And you had your family here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Spokane is one of those big little cities, I always
Mm-hmm.
call it. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, your high school friends are still here and things like that. But there's a whole bunch of other people that you've never even met. Like
Mm-hmm.
I meet new people here all the time. You know, it's not so much of a small town that you know every single person.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So I came back not knowing what I wanted to do, but I got a job as a graphic designer for a sign company.
Mm-hmm.
And just doing mock-ups and things like that. And again, no schooling, no formal schooling to be able to get into that position.
Mm-hmm.
But I had taught myself since I was 15 years old doing graphic design. And so I worked there for a while and hopped around to I worked at a photo studio doing digital touch-ups on and restoration on photos and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. But then I had met my wife, and we had a place out in Airway Heights. Just instantly fell in love with her, and
Thought you were going to say Airway Heights. So that was a good plug for your wife, Liz. Okay.
So we had a little trailer and then a duplex out in Airway Heights, and there was this publishing company right down the street, and it was Wheel Deals.
Okay. Yeah.
They produced Wheel Deals.
Yeah. That's how you would sell your car.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, pre-internet, all this.
Yes.
And so I decided that I was just going to walk down the street, and I went in there, put in my application, hired the next day as a graphic designer and paginator is what they call them, like layout pages and stuff like that.
And you have no formal education of this. Okay.
Zero.
You just went in.
And it's kind of one of those, you know, BS type confidence type things. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, I'm not lying. But I have a portfolio that I can show them, and they were really impressed with it.
Yeah.
And so I go in there and I get the job. I actually get my wife a job working on the floor. So we're working at the same company for a while. And I just keep moving up and up and up in the company. And
is that because you were driven to do so, or you wanted to keep learning more, or you wanted to move up, or you weren't happy with the pay and you're like, oh, I got to keep moving up?
No, it wasn't a pay thing. It was, I was able to take on, like we would build house ads, for example. And this is ad that if we can't sell the page, it gets put in there. Or if a client comes along and they really want a cool ad, I got to work on these type of things. So I was pushing myself and growing creatively. You know what I'm saying? And I guess that's what I mean when I say moving up, like kind of honing my skills and things like that. And I worked there for a number of years, and then all of a sudden I got a call from the Inlander while I was there. And I had built this kick-ass ad for this nitro drag racing thing or something like that.
Yeah.
And they said, they called me up and they're like, you built this ad? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, we want to run it in the Inlander. And I was like, okay, cool. And then I sent them the ad, and they said, we have a spot for an art director. Um, I'm not sure if you're interested in it or not like that, but if you want to come and apply, I think you're really talented and
Yeah.
you're skilled. And I was like, this is a paper that I grew up like picking up every week.
Yes, the Inlander.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And I would look at that cover and be like, how cool of a job would that be to have my art on the cover every single week, all around Spokane. And I was just like, I got to try,
Yes.
I have to try. And so they gave me a test. I went there, they gave me a test, and they said, you have an hour to create this cover, and here's the story, this is what it's going to be about. It's about the Catholic Church and stuff like that. So they gave me a camera.
I can't wait to hear what the cover is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they gave me a camera. I go across the street, I shoot a picture of the church, and I come up right up to the deadline of an hour, and I come up with this kick-ass cover with the church, and I forget what the headline was, but they were really, really impressed, and then hired me on the spot pretty much after that. Again, with no formal training,
Sure.
There's zero formal training.
But you believed in yourself.
Absolutely.
And you took a chance.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your wife thinking the whole time? Was she like, just do it? Or did you have that support?
Yeah, 100%. She's, that's one thing I will always say. My wife, Liz, has always had my back, even when it's crazy, when it's dumb, when it's out there. She's always been my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
And saying, yeah, let's try it. Let's go for it, So here I am, early 20s, and I start as a graphic designer, and then I get promoted to the art director, and I get to live out a dream of having my art, original art, on the cover of the Inlander every single week.
Something that you had imagined,
Yes.
but not known the path to get there
Yes.
at all. And it just happened to happen because you tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is
And it came to
awesome.
me,
Yeah.
which is the craziest thing. I never dreamed about going and applying at the Inlander until they called me. You know what I'm saying? Out of the blue. It's just a weird, again, maybe it's one of those big, small city things. You know what I'm saying? But just one of those weird things.
But we had our Gregory Zarian on, and he had talked about hang on that extra day, like Wilson Phillips talks about, because you never know. Could that choice, that opportunity, that friendship, that mentor could come along at any time to open up everything to you that you would
Absolutely.
never imagine.
Absolutely.
Ever. And
Yep.
it sounds like that's where you're at. So, okay, so you're at the Inlander, you're moving up within the Inlander,
Yeah.
and you still don't have that resume, real education, but
No.
you're just blowing through it, and you're actually
Yeah, and I'm impressing the bosses and things like that, and moving up, getting into that position, and then there's a lot of awards in the alt weekly fields, and then I start getting big awards for page design and graphic design and things like that, and local awards, national awards, and
did you ever pinch yourself and say, or did you ever think to yourself, I shouldn't be doing this? I don't have the education. I'm not good
Yeah,
enough. They're going to
probably.
find out about me
Yeah.
sooner or later.
yeah, you probably did. Yeah, I probably did all the time. I remember one of my bosses there saying that they had instituted other requirements
Uh-huh.
that if I would have come along later
You would
in
have
time,
been
I
given that-
wouldn't have been given that opportunity.
Okay.
So it was just this weird small window where my talent spoke more than my resume, you know what I'm saying, or my credentials. And so but again, during this time,
you were prepared at the moment that it came
Yes.
required to do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But during this time, I'm also creatively growing and learning way more stuff, and pushing myself and trying, because one thing that gets stressful in that field is reinventing the wheel every single year, because we do best of every year. We do
Yeah.
summer guide every year, Snowlander, stuff like that. So you have to create something brand new from scratch.
It's like a Bloomsday shirt. Like every year it has to be something new.
Something.
Right?
And they're all looking towards you for the creative spark. You know what I'm saying? It's like, how can I make this way better than last year's and things like that? So that pushed me. You know what I'm saying? That pushed me creatively to be able to do that.
Were you creative like that in drama growing up too? Like it is something that got you to go for those lead roles, or like have you always been that person? Have you always had that personality where it's a challenge that you set for yourself or you see out in front of you, you're like, I can get that. I just need to learn how to do it.
Yeah. One thing that my wife has always said about me is anything that I want, I go for it. If I set my mind to it, you know what I'm saying? That, you know, I was lead singer in a band. I tried that. I tried being an actor. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Like anything that I really wanted to set my mind towards, I didn't, let hurdles get in between me. You know what I'm saying? I like being the art director of the Inlander. I was like, holy crap, here I am. And like you said, there's a little voice inside of my head saying, you probably shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
You're probably not good enough. You're not skilled enough to be able to do it. But I didn't let that ever stop me.
That's golden, Chris.
Yeah.
It really is, because I think a lot of people don't apply for jobs, for example, because they might read the description of that job and they say, oh, I don't have 4 years of this. I don't have 3 years of this. And it's like the people who believe in themselves, then they say, you know what, I can do that. I can learn that. And they just try. Sometimes they land that job.
Yeah.
And then it's usually your employers teach you how to do it.
Yeah. That's
and it's
what
up
happens.
to you
Yeah.
to continue growing. And that's why it's so expensive for companies to fire people. And it's like, because they have to retrain somebody. So
Absolutely.
I think just knowing that once you get that job, that's the opportunity to really take off and blossom. It sounds like that's exactly what you did at the Inlander.
Yeah. And I, like we were saying, like I didn't let no stop me. I didn't let fear stop me. Fear is a big factor in a lot of people not trying or not going out. Like you say, for that job, maybe I don't qualify for it. Maybe it's across the other side of the world or something like that. And fear, I tried never to let that be a motivator for me, like to be able to push through it. Now, like the biggest, scariest step was leaving the Inlander for me. And fear was a huge factor.
Absolutely. And this is to start your own business venture and to go
I didn't
off.
know that's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
At the time. Like while I was working there, here I am like
making money. You have
supporting my wife and 2 young kids. And I had this idea, and I still remember it like it was yesterday, but it was like a bolt of lightning. And I had grown up like going around to antique shops and stuff like that and seeing this vintage style of design like on postcards and matchbooks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I always remembered like I would go to a store and see the postcard rack, and it was like shitty stock photography with like brush script of Spokane and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and currently at that time, Spokane was going through an inferiority complex and saying we're not as cool as Seattle and Portland, things like that. And I had this idea of like, why don't I capture current businesses and maybe some closed businesses, but capture cool parts of Spokane through my design and kind of revive that style, you know what I'm saying? And make people feel proud and love to live here in this city, because we have amazing things. We have Donut Parade, we have Dick's, we have things like this. We have cool buildings. So I had that idea. I had an inkling of an idea, and I had a meeting, just coincidentally, side meeting with a local tourism company, and I pitched them this whole idea. And I was like, you know, we could use this to be able to drive tourism here.
You're just brainstorming with this group.
Yeah, well, I came in there. Yeah. They wanted me to hire me for something else. And then I went kind of
a
90
different
degrees,
direction.
and I pitched them this idea, and they literally laughed me out of the office with this idea of what became vintage print.
Uh-huh.
And so I,
Rejected.
yeah, 100% rejected.
Okay.
laughed
Sure.
out of the office. And I was
Motivated.
stubborn.
Yeah.
I was, yeah, I would say stubborn and motivated, but I decided I was going to go home that night and see if I can put this into reality, bring this into reality. And so I had a screen printing setup, and I didn't know much about screen printing at the time. You know, everything I've learned, I've just taught myself, but I decided that I was going to design a Mount Spokane print. And so I came up with this cool design that I liked, and I printed out 13 Mount Spokane prints. And my wife is looking at me like I'm crazy, and she said, "What are you going to do with these?" And I said, "I don't really know. You know, I didn't
What
have
year
a
is
plan."
this? There's obviously, you can sell things on the internet.
2013,
Okay.
something like that. 2012, yeah, right around there. I didn't have any idea what I was going to do with them, but an intern at the Inlander currently was Andy Dennison's daughter, who owns Atticus, who used to own Atticus. And I said, "Do you think your dad, could you get me a meeting with him? Can we?" And she arranged it, and I went down there and I talked to him, and I showed him the prints, and I said, "This is the vision." I gave him the same pitch that I gave to the tourism company. You know,
That laughed at you.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And this is the vision. This is where I see this going. It's just a side hustle right now. It's just a project. I didn't see it going anywhere, honestly. You know, it's just going to be something I do for fun. And he said, "Yep, love it, absolutely." He said, "Anything you ever bring me, I'll just put a check in your hand." And he was true to his word. Like every single time I would create a new design, I'd print it. I'd take him down 20 of them, and he'd throw a check in my hand. You know, and
That's fantastic.
and then he'd put them up behind the checkout desk, and the collection started to grow, you know, and it's like one became, 20 became 50, and pretty soon at a certain point, the entire wall was covered with all my art back there. And it keeps growing, not just number of designs, but like different stuff. Like I would come up with a calendar of these items, things like that, you know, like we'd try new stuff, you know, like that.
And you're just at home doing this.
Yeah, like one thing I would say to listeners, one thing I sacrificed, and this is, I have a wife, a full-time job, and 2 young kids at the time. I gave up because usually we would all have dinner together, and then we would sit on the couch, watch TV or something like that. I sacrificed that part. I didn't sacrifice time with my family, still spent time with my family, but like that TV time, I spent printing in the washroom, and I'd print these things out and I'd design them. And so my life was like busy, but it was something that I loved doing at the time. And so family is really super supportive, you know. I mean, to the point where I might do 50 of a design, and I had them hanging up and drying all around the kitchen and all around the whole house, you know. So,
well, I want to go back really quick, and that is that when you were rejected by the tourism group, you took that rejection, you were motivated by it, but then you took what they said and you spent a day thinking about it and putting it to a plan and saying, okay, this is my mission, this is my vision of what I wanted to do. So you took that rejection and you actually you made it better. Right. And you really put a little thought and process behind it. And you're like, how can I make this work? And then after being rejected, you took it to the next person, but you were a little smarter. You had a little bit more of a vision that you could sell it a little easier.
And it was something that the next person physically could hold in their hand. And maybe that's what I didn't have before. Taking inkling of an idea versus a loose idea, you know, with something physical that they can hold in their hand. And maybe that's the difference between the two meetings, but one did not catch the vision and one definitely did and loved it. Fantastic. And so I am working a full-time job at the Inlander, printing in the evenings
as a hobby.
As
so
a
you're,
hobby.
You're sacrificing not your family time, but like your relaxed time.
My relaxed time.
Yes, 100%.
That's what I sacrifice.
And that is, I would want the audience to hear is that an entrepreneur is like constantly on.
Yeah.
I mean, it is not like, if you want to succeed, you have to go above and beyond.
That's what
and you have to sacrifice that time. And you have to get up earlier than everybody, or you have to go to bed later, or you don't get to have lunch. You stay through lunch. And it's just, as long as it's moving towards the goal that you want it to achieve, and you're having fun, doubles that, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it really does, because then it's not a job. It's not like this horrible thing. It's like you're enjoying the process, the journey, but then you see the light at the end of the tunnel, which could become something.
I didn't even see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
To be honest, like I thought this would be a project that I did for a year.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Like moving to America?
Yeah, exactly. Like I would run out of ideas. I kept calling it a project.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this local print project of icons and stuff like that. And that for me felt less scary than thinking of this as like a 10-year plan of where it's going to go, things like this. If I focused on these small little steps versus like this big mountain that I wanted to climb, that was easier for me to piecemeal in my head and compartmentalize and just thinking I'm just having fun. This isn't going anywhere, you know. I don't plan on this going anywhere, you know, like I didn't ever set out like that as far as like, okay, this is going to be a business. This is going to pay the bills. So
did your wife see it?
Nope.
Did she say like,
no
okay, so you're not seeing, even though you're hitting these marks and you're like, oh, I wonder if I could create this for this year, or I wonder if that, and you're still, these milestones are being hit and you don't see the end result yet or a vision of that. Is at any time, are you starting to realize you're like, I can leave the Inlander?
No.
Okay, so you're not there yet. Okay.
But you know, we're talking about doing things that you love, things that fulfill you, and it was also bringing in extra money on the side, you know, and I was like, wow, that's cool. Again, wasn't thinking it could go anywhere, but I ended up. So here I am at this job, and my manager was like, he was not good to work with. You know, we just like, we didn't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
And it was, I dreaded going there after a while.
This is the Inlander.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because of management, you know, and
that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to go to work and hate it.
Yeah.
And
it was
not
just the
feel that
environment.
welcome.
Yeah.
So it was like going to LC versus going to NC.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's an environment that wasn't welcoming.
Definitely not. And I ended up, so here I am doing my own creative project. It's blowing up, you know, and I hang my prints on my little cubicle, and people are seeing them. The owners are bringing in clients just to meet me and like, oh yeah, this is the guy that does all these prints and stuff like that. And I decided I was going to do a print of the Spokane Review building. And my manager saw that as competition. Even though I'm doing
Spokane
this
Review versus the Inlander.
Yeah.
Sure.
Even though I'm doing this on my own free time, everything like that, nothing weird going on. They didn't hire me to do it, but he just lays into me. And at that point, I said, this is it.
It was an easier choice.
It was an easier choice. It wasn't, I was still scared shitless.
Yeah.
You know, but it was the kick I needed. And Andy I called Andy from Atticus, and I said, hey, I'm thinking of leaving the Inlander. I'm thinking of maybe trying to do this full time, you know, like really see where this goes. And he said, Chris, like, I've penciled out the numbers. He said, your art has kept us afloat for the last few years. And he said, you're not in danger of us taking your stuff out of the store or anything like that. He said, I would go for it if I were you. And again, this is like going from LC to NC, you know, it's
Yeah.
like,
Well, and having a mentor who believed in you
yes,
and brought
exactly,
you under
exactly.
or believed in you and saw your value and potential.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so again, still scared shitless. I'm, you know, wife, 2 young kids, young family. And I said to my wife, I said, what if I try this? And she's like, okay. And I thought in the back of my mind, I said, you know, I can always just go work at McDonald's if this falls apart. A job's a job, you know, and as long as I keep money coming in and things like that and providing for my family. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to try it. And so that was the big leap. I left the Inlander and just kept printing, just kept expanding. And then we started doing like local art markets like Bazaar and Perry Street and things like that.
Like farmers market style for art. Okay.
Yeah. And so we started doing those, and I bought a truck, and I hung up all my artwork on the side of my truck, and we would show up all around town, and it was becoming really, really popular. Like, it was becoming its own thing, and I could see an inkling of the vision now. I'm like, okay, this is turning into a real business, you know? And
were you getting repeat customers? Were you getting
yeah,
people who were like, hey, can you do this logo? Can you do this sign?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, and absolutely. And like freelance was coming in at that time as well, because a business would approach me and like, hey, would you do my business? Would you do it like this? And so that was coming in.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it started, you know, really kind of
snowballing.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden,
would you think that, like, so for example, success as a personal trainer, when I was a personal trainer, was when people would ask to work out with me, right? Like, I wasn't having to cold sell or cold email or cold call people and say, hey, I'm running a special. Do you want to train with me? And as a public speaker, it's like reaching out to those event planners, reaching out to the C-level group. And when they call me and ask, are you available to speak because we want to bring you in? That's like that success. Like, I have become the expert in my field where people know what I do and what value I bring, and they believe in me, and they're coming and approaching me.
Yeah.
Was that turning point? Like, where you're like, whoa.
Well, yeah. Especially when those started to grow.
Yeah.
Like crazy. Like, all of a sudden, like Audubon School called me and they said, would you do a mural in our school? I've never done a mural in my life.
Sure.
But you know, again, that's never stopped me. I just figured it out. You know what I'm saying? I learned the hard way, and now I've done probably like 50 murals all around Spokane. You know, like, so people just started coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Oh, you're the guy," and started piecemealing it together.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's this guy. It's this guy. And so I was getting a lot of those calls, and what I loved about doing like art markets and stuff like that was meeting the people that my artwork would touch.
Yes.
Like, it was a personal, almost spiritual experience when people would come up to this big wall of art on the side of my truck, and I would just leave them alone. You know, I wouldn't go up and approach them.
Yeah.
Not like a used car salesman or something like that. I always believed that my art could sell itself. You know what I'm saying? But they see this image, this design, and like nostalgia washes over them. You know, their memories wash over them. Like, I went to Nat Park. I rode the Jackrabbit as a kid. I went to the World's Fair in '74, you know, and I did X, Y, and Z. And so hearing these stories and meeting these people, and then
you're the reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was humbling. Humbling. Like, at some point, someone told me, like, I give your gifts as Christmas gifts every single year. And I'm just thinking,
awesome.
That's so weird to be involved in so many Spokane people's Christmases. You know what I'm saying? Be a part of that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's humbling to me. And also the cool part, they would come up to me and say, oh, you know what you should do? And then I would start keeping a list of all these ideas that they would just give me. And so grows organically, that way. You know what I'm saying?
Was there something that you did that when you were a kid growing up here that you were like, that is one of the things I want to do? Like, was there something that was always like, ooh, I want to, and what is your favorite?
Yeah. Well, my favorite print, I always get asked this. It's my worst seller that I've ever made, but it's the Spokane Regional Health District building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the trash can
Yes.
building. Yeah. Um, I I don't know. I always grew up looking at that and looking at like the parkade and these cool design buildings. I always want to do a print of that, and I decided I'm just gonna. There was a point where I knew what a commercial success print
Yeah.
would be,
Mm-hmm.
and I made those
Mm-hmm.
like Manitou Park, and it sold all the time. But there were some that I just did for myself, and I just to get it out. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? And even if I didn't think it was gonna sell any of them, like one cool one that I did was Riplinger Funeral Home, and I just love the sign. I just love the design of it, and even though it's not going to sell, and so I have a lot of those weird ones, those rare ones in my collection that I just did for myself. You know what I'm saying? And
Do you have a copy of every one that you've ever done? Or
I
do you just
do.
take a picture? Oh, you do?
Yeah, I have an archive of all of them that I
Is it a
did.
giant storage locker? what is this?
It's just a sleeve, and
Okay.
it's like this fat now, but
Yeah.
but I've lost count of how many I've done, but which is good. I think that's great. Like at some point, Andy approached me and he said, "I think we should do a book," and so they funded a book. Um, uh, Chris and Andy, they funded the book, and I said, "All I want out of it is some books
Mhm.
that I can sell," and they sold tons of books. I sold tons of books, and it was really, really good. It was awesome. But there was so it comes up to a certain point where I'm thinking in the back of my mind of a storefront.
Sure. Because you're right now, you have a truck and you're
Yep.
doing them out of your house.
Yeah.
Okay.
And doing pop-ups is draining. Like, I don't know if most people know this, but especially most of these things are one-day things. So you get up really early in the morning and you set all this thing up, and it might do really well.
Yeah.
A lot of these things were doing financially well for us. But I was thinking in the back of my mind, how cool would that be to take a risk and try a storefront, an actual storefront? And so I talked with my wife again, and I said, maybe we could be doing less art fairs and then have a permanent home for vintage print and be able to try a lot of cool stuff that I wanted to try, like screen printing classes and things like this, And so I approached, like I was looking all over town. I was looking at Perry District. I was looking at Millwood. I ended up at the Garland, and
Right next to the theater.
right next to the theater. And I really wanted that corner spot on the Garland Theater, And I approached the landlord, and she said, "Well, that's being taken for a number of years, but I have this spot 2 doors down if you want to come check it out." And so we went and looked at it, and it was the old Cooney Law Office, and it was just walls. It was office and
Nothing special about
No.
it. Just it had no life to it.
zero.
Okay.
But I could see it. I could see the potential in it. I asked her, like, can we put in a garage door? She's like, yeah, let's put in a garage door. And I came up with this design, this mock-up on the computer, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I could see it in my mind's eye of where things are going to lay out, things like that. We knocked down all the walls. We put up barnwood on the walls and like vintage signs and vintage stuff. And
Including the white elephant wall.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Which was a true, like, I grew up going there all the time.
absolutely.
And I remember having to go through the tackle and bait section to get to the toy section.
Yep.
Right, every time.
Yep.
And they had a G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, the USS Flag, hanging up there. And I was like, man, I want that thing so
Absolutely.
much.
Absolutely.
But what I hated about the white elephant, because I collect vintage Star Wars toys, is that they would always write with a permanent marker on,
Oh, yeah.
on the
On the-
cards.
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's like,
yep.
oh, it's $3.99. Like
Yep.
always. And so that takes that value away from that mock, but I loved the white elephant.
So many people did.
Oh,
All of
it's
us
so
did.
great. And
Yeah.
so, all right, so you took part of that wall and that's up in there.
Well, that's in my new shop.
Okay, in your new shop.
Yeah. So one thing that I really wanted in this shop was a magnetic print wall where I can display a lot of my artwork. And so, because I went to Hatch Print in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is what they had. They displayed all of them. You can swap out prints with magnets and stuff like that. So I wanted to do that there. I wanted to do a print your own shirt station somewhere else. But it all started coming together, and we decided. I asked the landlord, can we just do a 3-year lease? Can we try it with 3-year lease? She's like, absolutely. She's like, and I said, well, this is all I feel comfortable paying. She's like, okay, that's fine. Totally fine.
But you had to ask.
Yeah.
People are afraid to ask.
Yeah. And I said, this is what I want to do with it. And she's like, okay, paint it up exactly how you want, everything like that. And sure enough, we took the leap and it started paying its own bills. The storefront started paying its own bills. And I'm just in shock at this point. I'm like, I didn't know if this was going to last a year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we started getting repeat customers, like you said. And those people keep coming back and they start to discover us in the Garland district. And
what was one of the main challenges to have a storefront, like 4 walls? Like what did you realize that was difficult that you maybe didn't expect with a store location versus being mobile?
We couldn't be, well, so if we showed up for a bazaar, for example, and thousands of people are there, we did really well for that one day. But so we couldn't move the store to be where the people are. So we had to figure out how to bring the people there. You know what I'm saying? Was the biggest thing. And I grew up going to the Garland Theater, one of my first jobs at the Garland Theater. And I thought to myself, the Garland Theater already has natural foot traffic right there. So people coming and seeing a movie, leaving and see a movie, they go to the Milk Bottle, they always stop right there. And so that's what I began to find was just figuring out those times of when really to hit that foot traffic, that natural foot traffic.
That's clever.
And it starts working,
Sure.
It starts actually working just by itself because there's already movie playing,
Yeah.
And so so that's going on. We're figuring out business. We're figuring out structure and what's working, what doesn't.
Hiring people to come in, or it's just you?
No, it's family.
Okay.
My kids are working there, things like that. And it's mostly still to this day, it's just family run, but and figuring out hours, store hours, and that's why I focused really primarily on the weekends because that's when the theater was open, really kind of balancing that. So that's going on. And then I don't know if you want to get into the Garland Theater. At all? Okay.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it is everyone knows about the Garland Theater in Spokane. I mean, it's the dollar theater, movie theater that I grew up going to all the time. And it's like they play lesser known movies or older movies, but it allows you to walk to the theater. And it's so nostalgic. And it's just, it's a landmark for Spokane for sure.
Well, my landlord who owns the Garland Theater, she approached me and she said, we don't have long to keep it open. It's going to close. Like, I want to get out of it. And it's not paying its bills. I'm losing $20,000 a month with just keeping the theater open. So I really thought about it for a long time, and I thought I would hate to see this theater go away. And so I had my son, I had a rough idea of a video, and I had my son and I work on this video, and I put out this call to Spokane just on my social media, and it blew up. It was crazy. It was the most viral thing I'd ever done. And prior to this, Minghua's neon sign fell over, and they approached me and they said, Chris, you're Mr. Spokane. Would you help us raise money to be able to get this sign back up? And
I like that tagline for you, Mr. Spokane.
that's what he called me.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't call myself that. He said, "You're Mr. Spokane." But we ended up raising, just on a GoFundMe, we raised 15 grand in 2 weeks and we got the sign back up. And I thought to myself, maybe we can try the same thing again with the Garland Theater.
Yeah.
And so I put out a GoFundMe. We ended up raising like almost 50 grand in a month, just from Spokane not wanting to see this thing go away. And because of that video,
That your son helped you with.
yeah,
Okay.
we put it out there because of that. I had a friend named Nate Brand who works for Crim 2, and he said, you should really reach out to Tyler Arnold, who owns the Jedi Alliance, because he's always wanted to own a movie theater.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh man, this is crazy. So I met him, and it was like that moment in Step Brothers where instantly you feel like you've known this guy for years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And he comes along and he's like, we can't let this die. Like, I will come along, I'll sign the lease, I'll partner with you, and we'll split the business and we'll save the theater. And it worked out, man. Sure enough, we were able to buy the business and not the building. We only got the business, but so we got the keys like January 1st, and we started completely renovating and turned the theater into something that we wanted to see. He's like big Star Wars guy and movie prop, and part of it's movie museum props inside of there now.
And he was at Lilac City Comic-Con too. He had all the
Yeah.
arcades there, and my son loved Star Wars. I'm a huge Star Wars fan,
Yeah.
and so he was playing, the old Star Wars game, and it brings back emotions. But you were talking earlier about like some of the prints that you do and the T-shirts and the murals. It's like it brings back these emotions,
Absolutely.
that people remember when they were a kid, and it's just a theater does that too. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember. Every movie that I ever went to in the Valley or up north at Newport Cinemas, and it's just these great emotions that come back. So you're allowing that for everybody in the community again.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is in the nostalgia business, running a vintage arcade.
Mhm.
I'm in the nostalgia business, and it only made sense for us to partner and to be able to. We put our heads together creatively, and we're like, what can we do to make people come to the movies again?
Yeah.
Because like during COVID, more than 2,000 screens closed, and movies are kind of on their way out as people are starting to stream again and things like that. And so we had to reinvent the wheel and say, what can we do to make, let's do film festivals. Let's do crazy stuff, just be able to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And oh my God.
And you're having fun at it.
So much fun.
Okay.
And running a business and raising a family at the same time. But I told him, I'm like, I only want to do the creative stuff. I only want a small piece of this pie. And he's like, okay, yeah, whatever you want to do. So I make posters for him. I do creative stuff like that. So it's not a lot of heavy lifting or dealing with employees or any of that type of stuff. I don't deal with any of that.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just having fun with it. And then, so time keeps going. Our lease is up. This year, it just got done.
This is for the Garland Theater, or this is for
is for
vintage?
my store.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And landlords have changed hands, and all of a sudden, we found out that they're going to build apartments in the parking lot, and like they killed my customer parking at the Garland Theater at my store, and then they said, oh, we want to double your rent as well. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy, man. Like, and this is around December, just this last December.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of panicking in my head. And I'm thinking, man, my wife and I have put so much into this store. And
everybody knows where you are. I mean, you're becoming a landmark as well.
Yeah. And we had to be able to make a decision at that point, December, January, what are we going to do? And so we decided, we started looking around, and we drove right down the street to the Boulevard building, that's Monroe in Indiana, Old Stewart's Hardware, triangular building. And we pulled up there, and the door just happened to be open. And it said for lease on the windows and everything. And we go in there, and we're like, hello, hello. And we start looking around, and there was a realtor in there, and he was showing it to someone else. And turns out that he was working with the landlord there, and they were looking at my business on Garland as an example of what they would like to see in this building. And so we talked to the landlord, and this landlord is one of those supportive people that believes in you and sees your vision.
Yeah.
And then they're like, yeah, we want to sign a lease with you. And it's a 5-year lease with another 5-year on top of it. So we're not going anywhere for a long time. And it was a deal too good to pass up, because I had grown this neon collection of huge neon signs in my
From
property.
all over.
Yeah. Like, and I've restored them. They come on every night. And one thing I really wanted to do at my Garland store was incorporate a lot of this neon, because it's nostalgic as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we couldn't even bring in anything. Like, we had run out of room. And so this new place was like a third bigger, high ceilings. And so I was able to bring in like 6 huge neon signs in there, along with my art wall. And now we have the white elephant shirt wall.
Okay.
Right there. And so we didn't let that challenge stop us, because we were hit with a roadblock of what we were going to do. And we said, okay, we've done it once, we can do it again. And sure enough, like, we spent 2 months building out our dream, and it's amazing. It's fantastic. I
Are you
love
happy
every
you're
piece.
out of the Garland spot right there?
Well, I'm happy that this building is such an iconic piece of Spokane, and it's so much more visible.
Well, it's like the Never Ending Story bookstore, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's on the corner,
Yeah.
and it's like at that angle.
Yeah.
Or what is it? It's in John Wick.
Yeah,
Where it's the hotel.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It looks
absolutely.
like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's iconic for you, and it's opened up so many more opportunities for you, and it obviously has made it another business on itself, of you being able to show off your signs as well.
Absolutely. So
What's your electricity bill?
it's not bad.
Okay.
That's funny. We
Okay.
just got our bill. I'm like, wow, that's not bad.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
that's doable. But we partnered with a local grant writer named Mitzi, and she has been dynamite being able to go and get funds that we need. And we started Spokane Neon Museum. So this is phase 1 of Spokane Neon Museum. You'll be able to come in to my store and see this. But eventually, Tyler's lease is up in 2030. And so what we would like to do is be able to combine our collections, my neon collection, his arcade collection, somewhere as a permanent museum somewhere. So
Really?
Yeah.
From the Jedi Alliance
Yeah.
to wherever it
Yeah.
is that you could create even a larger
absolutely.
spot.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
It would be really cool.
Well, and if you haven't been to the Jedi Alliance, it is basically all you can play video games for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And he has a museum upstairs
Yeah.
with different vintage toys, and
Movie
then
props
he
and
sells things and movie props.
Yeah.
But then you also have that at the Garland Theater
Yeah,
too,
we
right
do.
upstairs.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, even being in Seattle, being able to go to the different theaters over there, it's so neat when you go up and you see these movie posters from like Ron, or
Absolutely.
you see Star Wars, or something that just brings back this flush of memories.
Yeah.
And then going into your store now, you have all these vintage signs. Do you have a favorite one? Is it like Dick's, or is it
Like
what is
neon
it?
signs?
Yeah.
Because, man, I grew up obviously looking at these neon signs
Yeah.
all around town. There was one that I never saw working, but I could imagine it in my head. And it was the Italian Kitchen down there, downtown, kind of by Luigi's.
Uh-huh.
And it was this chef, and it looked like something out of Vegas, but he was always only half lit, you know,
Uh-huh.
but I could see he was supposed to animate and flip his pan.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, how cool would that be? So I bugged the owner for years. I just kept checking in with him, like,
Are you going to get rid of it?
are you
Yeah.
ever gonna sell it? Are you
Yeah.
ever gonna sell it? And he finally says, okay, I'm ready to sell. And so I hired a sign company, get it down, everything like that, and then brought it back to my property, completely gutted it myself, knowing nothing
Was there
about.
something wrong with it that he wasn't going all the way up and down? Or
Yeah, like
okay.
sign companies tried for many, many years to get this thing going, and it was always a disaster. It wouldn't
Okay.
work because he's really, really complex, and there's not a lot of room inside. So instead of making him double sided, I stripped it to single side and just focused on this one side. And sure enough, man, he is the highlight of the store.
Uh-huh.
He's right in the corner, but he is the absolute favorite sign that I have. And just you can go up to him and hear it clicking, click, 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 and you can go in there. You feel the buzzing. You can hear the buzzing of the neon, and it's just electric. No pun intended. You know, it's just the cool vibes and nostalgia that are in this store is what I had dreamed about.
Well, and you love going to work.
Yeah,
Every day.
Love it.
There was a sign, and it's not neon, but it was up on the north side, up by the old Toys R Us, and it was an Italian restaurant. It was a fork with all these spaghetti pieces hanging down. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
And then they had
do
like
remember
a
that.
Captain Crab that was right next to it, and it had a big bowl of like crawdad
Yeah,
that was.
yeah.
And I'll always remember that as a kid, and I have no idea what happened to that. But
Absolutely.
you talk about these little iconic pieces around Spokane,
Yeah.
and you not only with art but with logos and signs, and it's like that you're bringing these memories back that reach so many people. And and that's why you're Mr. Spokane. I'm going to call you that myself. But I mean, you're doing so much to the community. I can see why somebody would reach out to you and say, you deserve this as the alumni of like making a difference in this world, because you're doing that every single day, and you're bringing back all these emotions and these happy feelings of good times, because Spokane does offer that.
Absolutely.
Because we are a great community.
Because there is so much in this world right now that is so divisive and divides us. Like, if I can do my little part and welcome in every single person, you know, from whatever background, whatever side of the aisle you're on, and you all come into this place and you're just happy there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you,
I love
like,
that.
it's happiness washes over you, and you just, it's what you live for. It's what I live for. You know what I'm saying? Like, just to be able to bring a little bit of happiness to people. So,
well, and I love that you just said that, because I just spoke at Lilac City Comic Con, and Nathan O'Brien did the Comic Con, and it's like he brings something to the community, and everybody comes for their love of something where they feel they belong. Something is nostalgic. Some emotion is brought back, and it's like he's giving this reward to people. But it's just an emotion, and it's like making people remember that we have more in common than we don't.
absolutely. That's it. You said it. Absolutely.
Well, you are doing that. And so I would want to know what was the hardest challenge that you have faced thus far? Was it making that jump from the Inlander to starting your own business? Or what is the hardest thing that you have overcome?
Fear. Fear is the biggest thing, hardest thing that I've had to overcome. Someone was asking me, they wanted me to give a talk, and they said, what would you talk on? And I thought about it for a long time, and I was like, the basis of what I would like to talk about is, why can't we live in the world that we want to? Why can't we create the world that we want to see? And the biggest factor is fear and money, I think, are two big excuses that we tell ourselves. And they're lies. They're fallacies, because, and the only reason I say that, I'm not, you know, I didn't start with anything. I didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. Like, I worked a full-time job and we paid our bills. Like, I didn't have magic investors like
some people do. Right?
Like some people do, like with Vintage Print or Garland Theater or anything like that. These are things that I wanted to do, and I just and again, fear would hold me back, or hold anybody back, and say, well, how am I going to pay my bills? You know, if I quit my job, how am I going to do this? and then getting over that hurdle, especially leaving the Inlander and thinking to myself, like, I can just go work a job, a job's a job, a job. And then I'll be fine. It's not going to be the end of the world. So getting over that hurdle and then figuring out the money situation, like I just grew my business from doing it as a side hobby. And then slowly it's been able to fund these other things like buying signs and restoring them and things like that. And it just starts to be this self-fulfilling prophecy type thing of like, I built the world that I wanted to see just because of being able to get past that hurdle of fear, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. But not only were you able to get over that hurdle, I think what people stop at is, okay, the money thing, and what you did is you did the hard work that was required.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You didn't just like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, and if I quit, then I'm just going to sit back, I'm going to watch Netflix, I'm going to do this. It's like you put on your work pants and you went to town and you sacrificed that time, your sweat equity,
Yeah.
and you were taking chances. And along the way, you were growing, and you started to see all of these people like believe in you and then bring you under their wing and like show that they believed in you and they pushed you and supported you, including your wife and your family. And it's like one thing led to another, it started to snowball for you, but it was like you were doing good and you were bringing so much happiness to other people that it was like you were having fun doing it. And you were rewarded in the long term in the sense that you are not only successful, but it's like you're making a difference in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't take it for granted. Any day, like you said, I go into work, into the store, and I still print. I have my printing set up right there. People can come in, they can talk to me, they can see me printing, and it's it's a dream come true. And I don't know what the future holds.
Yeah.
That like I don't know what is next down the horizon, but I'm just having fun, and it just seems to be something that is just organic, and it just happens, like.
Well, and your journey that's the fun part, right? It's all of these challenges, these overcoming these fears that's making you stronger, looking good in front of your kids and showing them, giving them a mentor to look up to and say, if my dad could do it, why can't I?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And I hope if people take nothing else from this, like
this is the nugget. Here we go.
like, just start small. Just try. Just get over that hurdle of fear or time or whatever that hurdle is in your life that is holding you back. Like I didn't go take out loans or anything like that, start a business or anything like that. But you said I put in the sweat equity and I just tried piece by piece, just starting small. And it just blew up from there. It just went from there. So yeah, figuring out what that hurdle is and then just eliminating that, just blowing past that and just trying. And are you going to fail? Maybe, it's not always a guarantee that the parachute's going to open when you jump off the cliff, but Spokane is so awesome that they've always had my back. Anything that I've wanted to try or do, this town has always rallied around that.
Right, it's a community.
It's
right?
awesome.
If you are kind and giving, it's like if you ask for help, people help.
They do.
It is a community. Like if you're broken down, I've had many people come on and say, "Do you need help?
Absolutely.
Can I help you with that? Do you need a ride? Do you need to use my phone?" And Spokane is a great community, 100%.
It's amazing.
Where can people find out more? I know that you don't have like a vision of what's next on your journey, but where can people find you now, and where can they check out some of your work, and where can they get things?
So our physical store address is 1905 North Monroe. It's at the corner of Monroe and Indiana. Like I said, that cool triangular building, a big flashing arrow on the top. So you can't miss us. And we're also on Etsy, selling stuff online and things like that. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
And go to the Garland Theater and support that.
Absolutely.
And I know that you give free movies for kids sometimes, and you have different summer programs. So it's like You are making a difference in this world, Chris, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I look forward to seeing what you do more, what's on that journey coming forward. And I just got to go visit your store now.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.